As a state trooper for 15 years, I've experienced my share of close calls and uncomfortable situations. This happened over a decade ago, when I was still relatively new to the job. I was on night patrol on an interstate around 2:30 a.m. I usually had my car parked near a bush to hide myself from view of oncoming speeding cars, but at this hour, I didn't really try to hide too much. I was moving my car and pulled into a gas station that sat on the side of the interstate. It was closed, not because it was late, but rather it was temporarily out of service. I noticed 2 cars parked in the lot next to each other. There was nothing immediately suspicious about this, but I kept an eye out just because strange things happen at this hour. I parked my car in a way that I could watch the interstate as well as these 2 parked cars. I realized that I didn't see anyone in either of those cars. This was quite suspicious. The station was closed and there were no workers here. I exited my car with my hand on my belt and approached the 2 cars. I tapped on the windows of both of them. Nobody in either of them, as I suspected. I began to walk around the lot as the occasional car zipped by on the interstate. I went up to the glass of the closed gas station and knocked on it. I turned around, dumbfounded. Whose cars were these? Just as I imagined they could be in the woods somewhere, I heard someone running from around the building and asking for my help. He was a young 20-something-year-old man, like me at the time. He said his car wouldn't start and needed help. I told him right away that I was no mechanic and that he'd need to call a towing company, but he practically begged me to just check under the hood for a second. He ran to his driver's side and popped the hood. I looked under the hood with him, not really knowing what to look for because I wasn't much of a car guy at the time. I asked him if his battery had died. I took note that he was looking around very oddly. He replied, "I don't think so." I then looked at the car parked next to him. "Whose car is that?" I asked him. He said he didn't know. He simply parked there to see if there was a porta potty in the back or something. I was reading through this kid's story and something seemed off here. As I looked back at the guy from the 2 cars, I saw him looking back at something or someone. I turned and saw another guy approaching me with a knife in his hand. I unholstered my gun and aimed it at him. He dropped the knife and put his hands up. They both did. I immediately called for backup while keeping the 2 at gunpoint. I cuffed the one who was holding the knife and placed him in the back of my car. Then I grabbed the second pair from my glove box and cuffed the second guy. When backup arrived, I went to the back of the gas station where the first guy had originally approached me from. What I found there still holds up to be the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in all of my years as a trooper. There were 2 fresh, dead bodies wrapped in garbage bags, cut up into pieces to fit in the bags. Along with them was also a shovel sitting on the concrete by the woods. The 2 were planning on burying the bodies somewhere in the woods off the interstate, and it seemed they were in a hurry. These 2 were a couple of the dumbest people I had ever interacted with, being that out of anywhere in the state, they chose to bury 2 bodies off an interstate behind a gas station. Going to sleep at night, knowing you almost had your throat slit by somebody on the job, messes with you. And I didn't get much sleep for a while. If you hit that like button, there's a good chance someone else's spine will get tingled by these stories. My partner and I got a breaking and entering call late one Friday night. I had never responded to a call like that before, but it sounded serious. A young woman was home alone and heard footsteps downstairs. While she was on the 911 call, it was cut off before she could give her location in the house. We arrived at the home and entered through the front door, which was left unlocked, later proving to be how the break-in occurred. Both of us shouted, "Police!" with our guns drawn, expecting the suspect to be armed. We called out for Anna, the homeowner's name. Anna never called back to us. We knew she must have been scared and didn't want to give away her position to the intruder. We checked the whole first floor, which was small and quick to search. There didn't appear to be a basement. A door shutting upstairs drew my partner's and my attention. I led the way upstairs. All the doors had been shut, so I couldn't really tell which door I had just heard. I told my partner to check one door while I checked another. I turned the doorknob and kicked the door open, immediately lifting my gun into the air. It was a dark, empty room. I heard breathing in this room, though. It sounded like a woman's breathing. I looked at the closet door, which was slightly ajar, and saw half a face, mostly an eye, peeking through the opening. Resting assured it was Anna, I lowered my gun and said, "Anna, it's okay. You can come out." She didn't, and the breathing quieted. Then my partner in the next room over called, "Jason, I found her." My feeling in that room suddenly went from at ease to ready to throw up. I raised my gun again and yelled, "Come out of the closet!" They did not obey, so I called my partner into the room. He turned on the light and we opened the closet together to see a disheveled, drugged-out woman holding one of Anna's kitchen knives. With 2 guns pointed at her, she dropped the knife and we brought her into the precinct. Thank God I was stationed in a safer area of town the next year, and I haven't gotten any breaking and entering calls since then. Thanks for listening. If you want to help build the True Chiller community, like, subscribe, and share.